Okay, so Grandma, you told me that whenever you talked to your doctor last, he mentioned something called diabetes, and he expressed some concerns with you, and you didn't know what that was, so I wanted to help you understand a little bit more. Um, Diabetes is a disease in which your receptors on your cells are not very efficient at grabbing the glucose from your bloodstream and getting it inside the cell so that it can actually use it. There's two different, or I guess there's two different types. And so some of them you're born with, and that's going to be your type 1. And so it used to be known as childhood onset, is because you have it since you're a little kid. And it's that your receptors, they either don't work well, like they're not good at their job, or you just don't have enough of them. Or you can have type 2, which is delayed onset or adult onset, is the old name of it, but now it's just known as type 2. And that's where you get it usually later in life. Usually type 2 is also seen with obesity, because that's when your receptors have been kind of abused. They like to think of it as abused, the receptors, and now they don't work as well anymore. Um, but what it is if you have a lot of glucose in your bloodstream constantly and your cells can't get it into the muscle, like muscle fibers itself or the soft tissue itself, one, it's not being used, so your cells are slowly basically starving. So the performance is a little bit off of the actual cell. But two, if it's stuck in your bloodstream for a really long time, it puts a lot more pressure on your kidneys and your liver and things like that, because there's so much more things in your blood to make it thicker that's not supposed to be in there. That it really over exerts them, and years later you're going to have a lot of side effects. So a lot of people with diabetes end up having some sort of like um, liver or kidney dysfunction, or total failure in general. After 20, 30 years of having diabetes, that's a lot of extra stuff that your liver has to kind of shuttle through to filter out your blood. um, Also, people with diabetes have all kinds of stuff. Later in life, they could have eye problems, because their blood is so thick that their body wants a lot of water to thin it out a little bit. And if you don't satiate that in other means, then your body could take the water from your eyes, which are really kind of hydrated organs that have a lot of water in your body, will take them, and you'll end up with a lot of eye problems later in life. Um, what your doctor is going to tell you to do now is just to watch the intake of your foods, and they'll try to tell you to exercise and put you on some sort of exercise routine. The reason exercise helps is because exercise actually does the same sort of effect that a lot of glucose in your blood has on those GLUT4 receptors that are on your muscle fibers, and it'll help bring those receptors to the ends of the cells, the membranes, to help grab that sugar into the cell. Because your body knows that when you work out, you're going to use up all that sugar, and it knows that, so that it sends those receptors to go get more. Which is the same thing that like high glucose, like if I had a piece of candy, it would do. It would bring the receptors up, just in a different pathway. Um, the reason he's going to tell you to watch your intake is because when you have a whole bunch of sugar in your blood and your cells, let's say I have half of the insulin that I normally have, or only half of it actually functions very well, is because you can't pull in as fast as normal, and so you shouldn't be putting as much glucose into your bloodstream as you are right now. So you'll have less to work with. Um, I think, let's see, what else would he have said? People with diabetes, he's going to, again, when he tells you to get on an exercise program, you really don't want to exercise later in the day. You probably want to get that done in the morning, because it's going to drop, exercise is going to drop your blood sugar a lot, because your receptors are now at the surface of the cell membrane grabbing that stuff into the cell. And so let's say you take your insulin shot, and then let's say it's 3 o'clock, you take an insulin shot, you thought you were going to eat a late lunch, but all of a sudden you didn't, you got too busy, you went to go work out, and now you have a whole bunch of insulin in your system, and you forgot to put the glucose in because you forgot your meal, and now you're working out, and so you have more insulin receptors at the surface of the cell, and then you go to sleep. You could have some serious side effects. If you are older and your body doesn't wake you up to get food, which is quite common, then you might even pass away in your sleep, which is why a lot of diabetic patients are scheduled in the morning with their exercise, so that if you do take your insulin, you can take that, get food in there, in your body, so that your body can use that sugar. And then if you work out and you get that dip in blood sugar, then you can actually eat again afterwards. Whereas if you did it later in the day, you want to eat afterwards. You would just go to sleep and you could go into a diabetic coma or even just pass away from that blood sugar dropping so much. They're going to make sure you drink a lot of water, you stay pretty hydrated so that your blood pressure doesn't increase because of all that extra molecules inside your blood that makes it kind of clumpy, like we talked about last time you saw your doctor with the cardiovascular disease and things like that. If you have any more questions next time you see your doctor, let me know.